Hello, dear friends, my lovely audiences. Welcome to the show, the East West Show with the G&E TV. My name is Jack Chow. Joining me today is my good friend and a social activist, former candidate for California Assemblyman, Mr. Joe Gardner. So, sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jack. Always good to be here.
All right. Mr. Joe Gardner, having spent 27 glorious years at Santa Monica PD, retired back home, picking up another job that cares for the people who needs family cares. The kind of family cares they provide is that they put Meals on Wheels to deliver door to door to people, either due to age or due to illness, disability, or due to some short-term financial problems, can't walk out, can't cook, can't eat, they need food. Food are provided. And also, he and I, we, for quite some time, touched the issue of homelessness. Homelessness, namely downtown Los Angeles, and also within LA County, as a county. On average, you're talking about 46,000 homeless on the street. That's a scary number. And recently we heard about Orange County too. Along the river band, the river trail, the Santa Fe River Trail.
Santa Ana.
No, Santa Ana River Trail.
Right.
Santa Ana River Trail, there are tens after tens after tens of homeless, and which is an eyesore, quite an eyesore. Okay. And what is even worse is that recently, towards San Diego, that area, there's a hepatitis A discovered. For that, 436, I believe, affected. And amongst them, the 436, 16 have died already. Yeah. And the disease is still overgoing, all right, so spreading. With Joe, we want to put everything together for, mainly we're talking about three issues. We're talking about homelessness, we're talking about social order, we're talking about humanitarianism. And of course, in all the three, we have to touch AB 109 and its consequences. So to that much as an introduction to my friend, Joe Gardner, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jack. I really appreciate being here.
Thank you very much for coming here. So how do you see when all the three matters are together, and when the AB 109, Proposition 36, Proposition 47, Proposition 57, all together mixed, how do you see that as an overall picture, please?
Well, I think it's created a huge problem. And just to give you a little bit of statistics here, the United States homeless report that came out in 2016 said there were about 549,928 people homeless.
Oh my God.
One survey during the night.
More than half a million.
And the scary part of that is 242,000 of those people are right here in California. So it's a huge number.
We take half of it.
About 44%.
About 44%.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that tells you the magnitude of the problem. And I think the problem, as we talked about before, it's just a symptom of a deeper problem. And you hit on it. AB 109, Prop 47, the looming Prop 57 that hasn't really gone into full play yet. But the bottom line is we've released a lot of people from custody, from state prison, and then the county jails have to shoulder that burden. They become overcrowded, and then they just release people early. So nobody really gets the benefit of going through the system and maybe getting a chance at rehabilitation or a chance of getting mental health care through the court system. So it creates a huge problem.
That reminds me of a Chinese saying, which they describe a situation when you have a headache, you see doctor for headache only. As what causes headache, nobody asks.
Right.
So you have a food problem, you see a food doctor for food only. Why? How come? Which created? Right? Nobody asks. So in this case, everybody cares about his own territory, right?
Yes.
Jail say I'm overcrowded. Okay, let me release. Doors open, they're on the street.
Right.
So as what would happen when they're on the street, nobody cares.
Right. That's
Right.
it. They just address that issue at that point in time. They don't look at the bigger picture.
However, we are a society. On one hand, we have to keep the social order, right? On the other, we have humanitarianism to talk about. We're human.
Right.
We're a country, a nation. We even care about street dogs or street cats. Of course, we're going to care about our street human, right? So altogether, where do you see? Do you see, or do you possibly see a cure or analysis? Let's do analysis first. How come, in the first place, we have, as a society, produced such a group of people? Please.
Well, the problem is you have a lot of people who are homeless because they have some dysfunctional issue going on. And generally, as we talked about before, it has to do with either mental illness, has to do with substance abuse, alcoholism, or, you know, on a rare, small percentage, some of that has to do with people fleeing domestic violence or other kinds of conditions in the home that put them in the street. But you can categorize them in those thirds. You know, homelessness is related to mental illness, substance abuse, and alcoholism. And if you don't treat those issues, then you have a lot of folks who just remain homeless for long periods of time, they're chronic homeless. And it gets to be a big burden on society in the sense that maybe one, and they did a study, in one homeless person, it costs about $45,000 a year just to help that one person.
Wow.
The chronically, 10% of the chronically homeless in Orange County, it costs about $440,000 a year. And those are people that continually go through the system on an urgent basis, like our emergency rooms. They have to have short-term hospital stays because maybe they overdosed on drugs, or they create some problem where they don't take care of themselves. There's all kinds of factors that really have an impact, indirect impact on society.
All right, okay. Thank you for that analysis. A few days ago, I came across one article written by Mr. David Harrington. He is the mayor of Aliso Viejo. And he is like you, also put up several years, 28-something years and a half on the Orange County Sheriff Department for that service.
You really
retired as the city mayor, and he is now back running the sheriff. Right. He wrote that article to analyze the Orange County homeless problem. According to his analysis, there are three groups. Group number one belongs to those folks who, during their life, something had happened, right? They were unable to overcome the fall. And at the fall, and since the fall, they were never able to stand back then on their feet again. This is group number one. Okay, according to his analysis, group number two, including the druggies, prostitutes, people alcoholic, people get their problem, legal problem, or law enforcement problem. They never want to be on their own. And these are that group, the second group. And the third group is totally related to AB 109. They are simply criminals. So it is his recommendation that we as a society deal with group number three correctly and imminently, effectively. So do you think you agree with the analysis and the tactic of dealing with the third group?
Yeah, of course I agree with that, and he's right. We, you know, any basic municipality or county government or state government has an obligation to protect society, right? To protect its people.
Yes.
Have good public safety, and I think right now we're at a point where we're not receiving that as citizens, and so he's correct. Yes, you need to deal with the criminal element that is part of the homeless community. The people in the riverbanks go there because they know that the police will not go there.
And
typically,
by the way, you
out.
know how much I care about that issue, right?
Right.
I'm almost, you and I wear same shoes, right?
Yes, we do.
So I'm so close to that issue, so care about that issue. I have invited Mr. David Harrington twice on the show talking about it. At the both show, he insisted that with the existing law enforcement power or accessibilities and the remaining jail capability, we can, as a society, put them back in jail.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
I asked him. I asked him that. Well, it is well known, well understood that jails are overflowing.
Right.
And he said, you know what his answer was? Not at this moment, because they were released, rooms available.
No waiting.
No waiting. Yeah. We can put them back in right away.
Yes.
So do you think next time you run for office, you will echo with him, please?
Oh yeah, I think it sounds like a man I would like to know. It is very simple. We can put people back to serve their time as required by law. The laws are on the books. The problem is that we're not utilizing them. And I think if you have an opportunity to put people...
Remember last time you mentioned about the flash incarceration?
Right.
Right? We just flash in, and then next day they're on the street again.
Yeah, all of a sudden.
So this time, according to Mr. Harrington, put them in jail. Right. We have rooms. Absolutely. Or let's make room for them. We got to make sure at least 1/3 of the problem is cut off.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Is mitigated for how about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Today with my good friend Joe Gardner, I call him brother because he and I, we kind of joke around ourselves. We kind of the same mother, different father or something, like that kind of thing, because we do share the common ideology or similar ideology. I really appreciate God having created a creature like himself and myself that we communicate each other. We're on the homeless issue today. We're talking about 3 problems combined. We want to be sober-minded so that we clarify or categorize them into different groups so that we adopt different tactics in dealing with the different groups. So stay with us. We'll be right back, please. Hello, my dear friends, lovely audiences, my dear fellow Californians. Welcome back to the discussion about homelessness. California is at stake right now because we have almost 44% of this nation's homeless capacity, population. So they are condensed in our area. We're lucky enough to have this opportunity to deal with them, not only talk about them. Joining me in discussion about the problem, the homeless problem, is my good friend, a brother kind of friend, Joe Gardner, a social activist and a commentator, and he himself was a candidate for a California Assembly House. And I believe he is running again, and only God knows where his next step is. I believe he deserves a good office, right? So welcome back, Joe, to the discussion.
Thank you, Joe.
Right. Okay, now, I ask you one thing. Whichever office you run, once you take office, please make sure the third group is dealt with properly, imminently, and effectively.
Yeah,
right,
most
please.
important.
Right, good, very good. And now we have group number 2 left. Let's talk about group number 2. According to Mr. David Harrington, he says, the number 2 belongs to those drug abusers, and prostitutes, sometimes prostitutes themselves are drug abusers.
Right.
And they do prostitution for a drug and for exchange, whatever.
Right.
And sometimes their counterparts are drug abusers too, right?
Yeah.
Because they give them drugs for sex or something like that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or cash deal, something. Right. And alcoholic. Somebody alcoholic abusive, and to the point that they can't work on nothing.
No.
Right. So they lost the ability of supporting themselves. So to them, he recommended that we have lots of rehabilitation facilities, right? Mobilize them to get them into the program. And I believe you are in it. Can you say something, please? I believe that you are in this also.
I think the hinge point is that group of people, the people that have substance abuse issues, alcoholism, as you mentioned, conduct prostitution so that they can get more drugs or whatever. That segment of society, I think, is the one that seemingly is most neglected. You're right, there are not enough resources to go through drug and alcohol rehabilitation through the county system. There used to be many programs, or at least if you took somebody to court and they were sentenced, they could go to a rehab center as part of their sentence. But they're not making it there now. And part of the problem is they never get to the courthouse doors because they're constantly being released on tickets. They end up accumulating warrants, and then you know, if they never get picked up on the warrants,
they got it absorbed halfway.
Right.
If everybody, the system is vigilant about it, every offense brings them to court, let the court send them to the rehabilitation center,
right.
Let them get rehabilitated, and they, in the meantime, remember last time you mentioned about their professional skills,
right.
Working skills, learn some skills,
right.
Either carpentry or blacksmithry, whatever thing.
It's a missed opportunity.
And the opportunity to come out of the system like a person who can support themselves.
Right.
And that will cut off the transit from group 2 into group 3.
Right.
Right? So once they are out, they know nothing about society. Oh, by the way, Joe, I want to share this with you. Nowadays, if you lock me for 5 years, let alone 10 years or more, right? When I'm out, I become obsolete. Why? Because the technology is growing too fast.
Right.
You can't catch up,
no.
Right? So for 5 years of absence, you are totally history.
Right.
So
absolutely.
Now, can we do something in the system, Joe, that while they are being rehabilitated, learn some skills? Do you think that's possible?
Oh, I think it's entirely possible, and I don't understand why we don't do it. We know when people go into jail, the estimated time they're going to spend there, and some of those people can be evaluated on site in the jail system.
Only they're good,
right? And if they're suitable, perhaps they may be a person that can go into a jobs program as an apprenticeship. Maybe they learn a skill on the facility itself, plumbing or whatever. We used to have some of those kinds of programs, but it's not done anymore. So that person basically sits and waits for his time to come, and he gets out and does nothing.
There's a difference in between that those in rehabilitation center got nothing to do. They sit there for nothing.
Right.
And the fact that the funds are cut off so that they couldn't run. I learned that both from federal, state, and the local level, at 3 levels, there are different kinds of rehabilitation centers available. And funds are there.
Yes.
Plus, there are religious organizations, some churches, they do that too. Right. So you're basically talking about 4 resources. Right?
Right.
Our job for the society is that to mobilize everybody to make sure those are utilized 100%, to send them to rehabilitation. While being rehabilitated, learn some skills to catch up with time.
Right.
So that will stop them coming from group 2 to group 3.
Right. I think it's vitally important. The problem is that there's a giant chasm. If they never from the streets make it to the courts, they fall in this huge chasm or canyon of continual warrants, and they remain on the street. The court can never do anything they need to do.
We can make the law. We can make a law saying everybody in that situation or in that condition must go through court system.
Absolutely.
And in that case, nobody will go for a shortcut.
Absolutely. I think
right?
that's vital.
That is very vital,
Yeah.
right? So once again, I want you to make another promise. Once you take office, create some law to make that happen, please.
You can count on that. That's
Yeah.
something that I've advocated for.
I always count on you. All those years, I know you're somebody that I can count on,
Yeah.
right? So,
And it's very basic, right? It's common sense. I don't know why
course.
we haven't applied it.
Of course. And we're talking about the 4 layers: federal, state, local, so city level or county level, and then you have church organizations, right? Right. All 4 levels, if mobilized, we are enough to handle the problem we have.
Absolutely.
Right?
Just it needs to be allocated properly. And
Yeah, allocated, utilized properly, and we need a law to go in to make sure it is legalized to do so. It is illegal to go short way, right? To short way with it.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Okay, my dear friend, my lovely audiences, today I'm so happy that I once again get the chance to share my thoughts. I've been my heart been very saddened these days ever since the story that I heard all over Southern California about homelessness, right? So with Joe, we want to find the answer or the cure. Now we come down to group number 1, right?
Right.
Group number 1 is a kind of a pathetic group, right? It calls for lots of sympathy because we want to understand them, understand their problem, understand it might be their fault, it might not be 100% their fault what happened to them.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. To give them some help, to them, what do you think is available, please? I mean, group number 1.
I've always believed in having a compassionate society, a society that takes care of its people, and homeless people need to be taken care of to some extent, especially those who are suffering from mental illness or some kind of disability that makes them homeless.
Yeah.
And so we should be always at the ready to want to help somebody like that. You know, somebody who ends up in the jail system because they have a delusional outbreak of something that occurs to them and they assault somebody and harm somebody. Well, the underlying reason we know is because they had a mental illness. You know, they thought something was a threat to them, and they, you know, they committed what would normally be a crime. But if we have take the time to assess those people when they get into the system and kind of define what their issue is, and then refer them to the correct path that they need to go to get some help, I think you could do the compassionate thing and have some of those people become productive members of society.
Very good, very good. I like that analysis. That's a very humane, I would say. Once again, my dear audience, we want to understand the definition of each group, right? So once again, group number 1 is the people, the folks who unfortunately in their life had something or some situation encountered that debilitated them from self-supporting.
Right.
That includes financial problems, job loss, or even PTSD, right? And some mental problems altogether makes the group very pathetic.
Right.
And group number 2 includes those drug dealers, alcoholic, and substance abusers, stuff like that. And they are the ones that we need to pay special attention to provide them a chance of rehabilitating. While rehabilitating, we want to offer them some kind of a training, skill training, so that they are not left behind, so that they, once they are out, they can live on their own. And group number 3 has totally nothing to do with the society, because it's not our burden. Our burden as taxpayer, we bought it out already.
Yeah.
We pay tax. Law enforcement agencies supposed to take care of them.
Right.
They belong to jail. So for that part, we recommend we make laws whatsoever versus to overturn AB 109 to bring them back to jail. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Very good. My dear audience, let's take a very short moment out. When we come back, we'll put all 3 together. We'll see the value of humanitarianism. So stay with us. Hello, dear folks. Hello, my lovely friends, ladies and gentlemen, dear fellow Angelenos, fellow Californians, fellow Americans. Welcome back to the show. Jack Chow with my good friend Joe Gardner. Joe Gardner is really a trustworthy friend and friend for life. We go back many years, and we share the same ideology in lots of aspects. On this homeless issue, I believe that Joe Gardner has been involved very profoundly. And also with the Meals on Wheels program, he is the president of the San Gabriel Valley, what is it?
City of Industry.
City of Industry, right? Mm-hmm. So why don't you, introduce that area by yourself, please?
Yeah, we serve 18 communities in the East San Gabriel Valley, from West Covina all the way down to Diamond Bar. So, we serve, I think last month we served about 1,100 meals, across that whole region to about 65 recipients, people that can't make meals for themselves. So we're very proud of that. We do a lot of hard work.
All right, very good. And I'm so glad that till the end we have somebody namelessly or soundlessly working on that problem. And for a homeless issue, we need that too. Yeah. We need people, after sober-minded analysis, we assume that we take group 3 out. Group 3 is out of discussion because they do not even belong to the street. They belong to jail, right? Group number two is supposed to be out of the discussion too, because they belong to rehabilitation. Right? If we mobilize all society to activate at this very moment, though, group number 2 should be out of discussion also.
Right.
Now, what's left over for us is only group number 1. Do you think with the only group number 1, our job gets easier?
I think it would.
As a society?
As far as the cost to society, I mean, and I've run into folks that have been chronically homeless, and they create a lot of burdens on an average community, with emergency services having to come and treat them, fire trucks and ambulances and take them to the hospital. It's a huge cost on society for one individual who will continually, multiple times a week, multiple times a month, who will incur cost. And, I think we'd be better off to pay up front.
Yeah, for a 3-day stay in the ER, you're talking about $100,000 easy.
Very expensive.
Yeah, easy. Right?
Not to mention the cost of the fire department to come, as well as a police officer who has to show up. If they have to commit that person, there's transportation involved. It's a huge monumental cost one individual. Multiply that by
You're right, you're right.
hundreds.
The problem is that learning from what's happening in Orange County, especially San Diego, right?
Right.
The pandemic starts.
Yeah,
right?
that again too.
Disease do not have eyes. They don't know which is group 1, group 2, or group 3. They spread. Right? That disease could spread right away. And Los Angeles, LA County, either county or city, we're not far away from it.
No.
Right?
Our own crisis is looming as well.
Yeah. And they say, for example, a doorknob. If you were affected person touch the doorknob and you touch the next,
you might get hepatitis.
You might get it right away.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So what are we going to do as a society? First responders. First responders, when they got to the site, they're the one dealing with them.
Right.
They can't prevent contact.
No, they can't.
Right? And breathe.
And oftentimes our first responders, police officers and paramedics will get diseases, and they have families. They don't want their kids to get sick.
And then they come home, the kids gets it.
Right.
And they go to school, the school gets it.
Right.
Right. So it's an outburst.
Yes, it is.
An outburst.
Yeah.
Okay. So how are we going to do in a situation like this? And for LA, for example, we haven't seen report yet. Probably still time to act. You're an activist. What call do you make?
I think the most important thing with any of these 3 categories that you talked about in regards to homelessness is you got to attack the root cause. You got to look at the issue, take time, really assess what's going on and address that one issue. Whether it's mental illness as the underlying thing or substance abuse, or if it's a criminal that needs to really go back to jail and serve all of his time for whatever offense he commits. I think you got to look at that because if you don't deal with the root cause of any problem, you're going to just let the problem persist. We're continually stamping out the brush fire, but meanwhile the guy with matches is lighting more matches, and you're over here trying to put the fire out.
They're lighting up more fires.
Right. So that's the thing you got to get to, is to stop the problem, the root cause, and deal with it. And it's going to be costly. It's not going to be cheap, but we need to be committed to do that as a society.
Speaking of the root cause, in addition to the original root cause, we're talking about, we have an added root cause, which is AB 109, and it's Siri. I remember last time when you and I were doing the discussion, doing the interview, you were talking about overturning of AB 109 and its series.
Right.
It comes in the series, right? So what is the status quo now? Anybody still working on that?
There are some advocates, handfuls of people out there trying to make their voice heard. I'm one of those. It's not easy, and it really has to originate in the State House in Sacramento. You have to have people that are committed to look at the problem and say that maybe it was an experiment gone wrong, and to change it. I mean, we wanted to address one single issue. Of course, the governor wanted you to believe something else, but his issue was, we got to get the federal court off our back. So we're going to start releasing prisoners. Here's a novel idea. Let's send them to the county.
All right.
And that way we wipe our hands clean.
Yeah.
And that's not the answer. I mean, if you have an overcrowding issue in the state penal system, then you need to build more prisons, right? You need to make sure that every prisoner who is a threat to society.
But we have no money, they say.
No, they got tons of money. They just misuse it. They put it in places where it doesn't belong, like in high-speed rail.
Like the high-speed rail, right?
Or the giant tunnels that are going to cut down.
Like bullet train, the giant tunnels, right? Something like it.
Yeah.
Like
so, put the money where it belongs. Think of the priorities.
Except the individual activist or individual organizations, is there in Southern California a grand organization or collaboration of all efforts named under AB 109 or something to make a stronger image, to make a stronger voice so far?
And that's the rub. No, there are police chief associations, you have crime victims alliances, that are out there. And each of them, unfortunately, are doing these efforts of advocating.
Remember Officer Boyer?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
He was killed by an early release that it was not only arrested, but just now, confirmed.
And the Whittier police officers are very upset about that. You know?
Yes.
And they've been advocating as well. They want changes. So we just need to put ourselves together as a group, as one voice, large voice, and really take
There are
it to
two ways. There are two ways. Number one way that we want to make it altogether a collaboration effort.
Right.
For example, California against AB 109.
Right.
Just they're randomly taking a name, faking a name. California against the 109, something, right?
Right.
Okay. That organization to include all the efforts together to make a bigger bill, to make her bigger voice, something like that.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, there has to be somebody, some new hands going to legislature to overturn the culture.
Right.
So do you think the option number one, the effort number two?
I think that's
is
the
being
most
worked
critical
out.
part. You hit on it. You said there's a culture in Sacramento
Yes.
that really
To overturn
has
the
not-
culture.
Right. They have their own agenda. They do not work on behalf of the people of this state. And those people, many of them, and there are some good legislators up there, but there are many more that really need to go because they seemingly don't understand how it is affecting the local communities. And so I think the most important thing is to put people who are good candidates up there in Sacramento to change the culture and make it better.
Okay, very good. My dear audience, I love that. I love to hear that because it's the legislature culture we are talking about that needs to be changed. With me today is my good friend, Joe Gardner. He is a activist, social activist. He's the president of the San Gabriel Valley Meals on Wheels program, which covers 18 different communities and serve thousands of meals on a day-to-day basis to needy families or needy people. So stay with us. When we come back, we'll see exactly what shall happen with the legislature if some new blood comes in. Stay with us, please. Hello, my dear friends, my lovely audience. Today, we at the East-West Show talking about the homelessness issue. We have our good friend, Joe Gardner, visiting us. Mr. Joe Gardner is a wonderful individual. I know him as a friend, and I'm so proud to have him as a friend for his ideology. Well, he's been on the Santa Monica Police Department service for 27 glorious years, and after retirement, he picked up another job, which is unpaid, of course, for total volunteer, called the Meals on Wheels. He's the president operating the whole organization. Anyway, now we are talking about the homeless issue. The homeless issue has been in Los Angeles, both downtown and LA County areas, been a very, very, very viral issue, often talked about. And lately we have Orange County homeless issue added on top, especially when in San Diego, hepatitis A discovered, and there was 436 of individuals got affected, out of which 16 have died already. Yeah. The issue has gone viral, right? A week ago, I came across an article that is published on Orange County Register, written by Mr. David Harrington, mayor of Aliso Viejo, and I have invited him on the show for twice to tackle the problem, right? Today, once again, I I have invited my friend Joe Gardner to share the views to see if we can do something to change. Okay, now all in all comes to one conclusion that you got to find out the root issue.
Right.
The root issue is that without AB 109, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Without AB 109, our number of homelessness would be reduced at least 50%.
Yeah, I don't know about the percentage, probably pretty close. So, and I think, yeah, if we didn't have AB 109, you'd have people going into the system.
Yeah, last time I checked with Mr. David Harrington,
right.
He says group number 1 probably takes 25%. Right. Group number 2 takes probably another 25%, and group number 3 makes 50% of the whole chunk.
Yeah. I think it's entirely possible.
Yeah. In other words, if we had the one group, the whole group, number 3 taken out, we're reducing it by 50%, right. Half of the problem. Mm-hmm. And now we're talking about the 25%. Group number 2, we have home for them. Group number 1, we would mobilize, every department of the society, everybody gives a hand to see the problem, right?
Right.
And plus we have those GRs, general relief. We have those all kinds of programs available, right?
And I think that's you mentioned that, and that's one of the factors that draws that 44% to California out of the nation's total, is because we have a lot of entitlements. A lot of the GR is attractive. Plus, we have a good climate. Our climate is nice. You know, some guy doesn't want to be homeless on the streets in Buffalo, right? You'd rather be here,
of course.
sleeping on the beach.
Here, yes.
So, yeah. So I think you're probably pretty accurate with the numbers.
All right. California weather, right? California entitlement, right? And the California. The land more open,
right?
More open areas you can find. So track them here, and then now with that taken into consideration already, suppose if we did take group number 3 out of the picture, and we have only 50% of the problem remaining. Now the only solution is to get somebody up there. Go run their run their offices, so that you have different voices to overturn, to change the legislative culture.
Absolutely. I mean, at the core, that's what we need to do, is we need to change out some of those people in Sacramento. Right. The legislators, the senators, ultimately, they have led us down the wrong path, and many of them need to go. You have to upset the apple cart and start anew and bring in some new fresh faces to really understand that they're here to serve the people, not themselves.
I believe my audience, thank you very much for agreeing for agreeing with me. My audience probably will share the same page with me, because if you take a look at the recent years of California, check about the bills that they have made, right? You really believe the legislative culture has to be changed or need a change. If you really look into the bills and the laws that they passed lately, for example, the legalization of marijuana, right? The 3rd bathroom on school campus, right? And now you have AB 109, you have Proposition 47, you have Proposition 57, whereas you have measure, I can't remember the precise number, for road conditions, remember?
Oh, right.
Right,
yeah.
for twice, right?
Right.
Okay, and then later, nobody knows where the money went.
They still won't explain it.
And then,
but they need more money.
Yeah, all right. And then there's a tax increase, the gasoline tax,
right,
start to be imposed coming January, right? Altogether, do you not feel the same way I feel, that culturally something has been wrong?
Right.
We are, instead of taxpayers who they shall respect, we are taken as a bank, as bankers, that anytime they need money, they want to knock on the door, they want to suppress you, right? And plus, with the limited money, we're talking about speed trains, bullet trains, speed rails, right? Okay. Remember you and I last time we talked about that in China you can say, hey, I want point A to point B, straight ahead.
Clear shot. Yeah.
Because the land belongs to the country. Right? It's a public property, no private land. Okay, now every piece, every inch is private, so you have to go zigzagging, right?
High speed, it's not.
Yeah, there's no A to B straight line, physically, politically, and naturally possible.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, I tell you, I don't know why we come up with these ideas. You know, subsidizing electric cars. It's great to have an electric car, but why should a taxpayer have to pay for someone else's electric car?
You're right.
You know, it's the power, and for your listeners, the power rests right in the palm of your hand. You have the power to decide who you're going to send to represent you. And I think it's crucial that you make a good decision, you find good candidates, you help them, so that you can change that culture in Sacramento.
I have myself, I believe that I'm doing my job, right? I've supported lots of people who are running at this moment to make the change, right? And that includes our candidate for state legislature, and that includes my persuasion coming to you, Joe, please run for something. I believe that not only California deserves a change, we deserve to have somebody like you yourself, right, to sit there to do something on our behalf.
Yeah, no, I can't sit and watch idly. That's why I ran before. I think it was critical to change the culture. You know,
it is.
It's a big decision to make, and it's a big sacrifice on a family that for someone who runs. But I think it needs to be done. You know, it needs to be done. You're a soldier in changing the way things are.
Of course, if you are a selfish person, you will never run for anything. Because running for the public service is you don't get paid that much, or you probably spend more than you could afford. Plus, you sacrifice your family, your relationship, so on and so forth. But the thing is that you do it for the constituents. For the benefit for the people, we the people. Now, we the people are not only taxed to the bone, and we are bothered by the homeless issue, right? And we are having to face a pandemic, possibly, of a devastating disease. And our lands are taken, our parks are taken, and of course they are pathetic. Of course they deserve food. That's why we have Joe Garner putting Meals on Wheels, right? But Joe Garner putting Meals on Wheels does not mean we do not have a problem. We do have a problem.
Still there, big one.
We do have a problem. And who is going to tackle the problem? Somebody, some new hands.
Absolutely.
Am I right?
You're absolutely
And it goes in turn at the very end of the circle, boom, it lands on the cause of the problem. Right? You have to have the right person to do the job.
Absolutely.
Am I right?
You're correct.
Very good, very good. My dear audience, my lovely friends, today with my friend Joe Garner, we shared with you about our problems of homelessness. It is an issue all combined. Number one, we as a society, humanitarianism is our job. We want to act like very human, right? We as a society even care about street dogs and street cats, and there's no excuse we do not care about our street fellows, brothers, sisters, like that. This is number one condition. Number two condition, if you analyze those street people, you will find out they belong to different groups, and each has his own home to go, right? So now we drag law enforcement in the discussion, we drag rehabilitation or organization religious organization into the discussion, and then we have the social system such as GR, so WIC, or so on and so forth. Those funds available. So we want to motivate the whole society. Who can do that? Somebody. All right, Joe. I once again convince you. I try to persuade you to go run something, please.
You've been very persuasive, Jack.
All right, very good.
I'll mull it over.
Either Senate or Assembly.
Yeah.
Go get an office, please.
All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, my dear friends, my dear audience. Thank you for sharing. And to my friend Joe, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack.
All right.